Welcome back to Insight Review as we look back on the defining stories of the past 7 days. Staying in London and to another terrorist attack, this time at a mosque in the north of the capital. One man died, 11 people were injured when a van plowed into worshippers as they left a mosque in Finsbury Park on Monday. And there are now questions about the mental health of the alleged attacker, 47-year-old Darren Osborne, after it emerged he'd attempted suicide just weeks before, and his sister has been quoted as saying he wanted to admit himself to psychiatric care. Georgina Godwin and Emeka Ogbogu are here with me now. First of all, the government came under a lot of fire for a slow response to this incident as well, not calling it terror. And the Muslim community, when I was there at the scene this week, were saying that's a double standard, and it really started to ignite the street a little bit, David.
With Muslims in particular, they feel indignant at the fact that whenever it's someone that fits the stereotype, they're deemed you're a terrorist. It gets attached to their religion. Islam is now synonymous with terrorism in some people's minds, yet with British foreign policy abroad, that's not terrorism, that's just spreading democracy. And they feel hurt that on this occasion, when it's a white male, there is a double standard, and it doesn't really seem that they want to budge on this. I remember watching early in the morning, and I said to myself, I'm not going to leave my house until they finally say it's terrorism. I cracked. By 9 o'clock, they still weren't saying, and I just left my house. I said, this is a
Prime Minister May came out in the morning and said it's potentially a terror attack. Is it a terror attack, or is this a hate crime?
I think it's possible for it to be both. I mean, I suppose.
And who calls it?
Well, exactly. Who does call it, and how do you define it? Because is terrorism always governed by a movement? Is it a political movement? Does he need to have an organisation behind him to make it terrorism, or can one person be a lone terrorist? I think what it definitely shows, and as you point out, he had attempted to section himself. It comes down to mental health, as so much of terrorism does. I think that you rarely find an act of gross terrorism that isn't
There are certainly a lot of them that have been tied to mental health issues and have histories of petty crime and mental health issues.
Absolutely, and this man was one of them. I mean, I think that it was absolutely outstanding, the reaction of the imam at the mosque, Mohammed Mahmoud, I think his name was, who shielded the attacker, who wouldn't let anybody there, what people understandably wanted to tear him limb from limb. He allowed no harm to come to him, and I think that if we need any further proof of the fact that Islam is, at its core is a peaceful religion, then that man is an outstanding example. I
spoke to him, and I thought he was a very passionate but very calm character, and he was trying to calm the street down there as well. And people were saying the Muslim Association of the United Kingdom came out and said, why aren't there more police on the street? Why don't we have protection around mosques? And he said, you know what, our community does pretty well by itself, and we don't need that. I mean, maybe as we draw towards the end of Ramadan, we could have a few more policemen around the mosque, he said. But generally, they interact well, and it's a cohesive, good community. What do you think of that, David?
I think there is a bigger issue to that, which a lot of people have come out and said, well, they need to display more integration. They need to show that you're not a part of this and you condemn this. But the only issue with such points is that if you don't have a litany of Muslim friends, if you've never been in the mosque, you can't verify such erroneous assertions. So it's another propaganda trick, another ploy that's coming out.
Sure. And a lot of people would say that there's, because of the rise of Islamophobia, and there is an increased number, certainly in the wake of Manchester and the attack on London Bridge, that there should be more police protection out there for people, and police should be more responsive to Islamophobia.
Yeah, they should be more responsive. I think they need to protect mosques a lot more. They play an integral role in this society as everyone else does. And I think that with the rise of Islamophobia, if protection isn't given, we're going to see a backlash of young people who feel they've had enough, and they're going to take matters into their own hands, and that could lead to further escalations of violence on the streets of London, in Manchester, or anywhere else in the United Kingdom.
And in fairness to the police, Georgina, they are saying they are strapped. I mean, they are just torn at the seams with what they have to do on the street right now, as they have been cut back year after year after year. Under
now Prime Minister Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary. I think that David's absolutely right talking about unrest, particularly when you tie that to our previous story about Grenfell Tower. And I think that there's a lot of unrest fermenting there. We've had a huge heat wave here. All of these stories coming together, plus an unstable government. I think Britain's looking at a very, very bad summer of discontent. Let's take a look at some of the discontent that is broken out in America over some of these police shootings across the Atlantic to the U.S. now, where police dash cam footage has been released of the moment a police officer in Minnesota shot and killed a motorist he'd pulled over for a broken taillight. Let's take a look.
reason I put George, your brake lights are out. So you only have one active brake light, and that's going to be your passenger side one. Your third brake light, which is up here on top, and then this one back here, is going to be out. You have your license and insurance?
Sir, I have to tell you, I do have a firearm on me.
Don't reach for it then. Don't pull it out.
I'm not pulling it out.
Don't pull it out.
It's a disturbing video to watch. With me today, the broadcaster, journalist Georgina Godwin, and senior analyst at the International Interest, David Emeka Ogbogu. This unfolds in 40 seconds where he politely goes to the window and then 7 shots are fired. It's stunning.
I'm not stunned. And that's the biggest problem. As a young black man in this country, I am not stunned because we've seen this time and time and time again. This is the democratic leader of the free world. We thought the United States had moved on from situations like Emmett Till, where this young boy was kidnapped in Mississippi, brutalized, killed, dumped in a local river, and they were acquitted. And yet in the 21st century today, when we've been told, no, things have changed or they're getting better, yet again, another male, or irrespective of gender, is acquitted for murdering a black man. This is a modern-day lynching, but by a gun.
Well, that policeman looks pretty scared to me. He goes to the window. He asked that man to stop reaching for what he thinks may be a weapon. Whether he does so reasonably or not, whether it was a wallet, he said that his hand was wider than it should have been to reach for a wallet. That policeman was surely in fear.
The policeman may well have been in fear, but so was the victim, who very, very clearly said, who volunteered the information that he was carrying a weapon. The policeman said, don't pull it. He said, I'm not going to pull it, as he went for the thing. Surely that's reassurance enough. I'm not going to pull it. He doesn't get to finish his sentence.
Should the legal test in these cases in the U.S. be that does the policeman have grounds to fear for his life and therefore he can pull the trigger, or should it be proportionate force and he appeared to use disproportionate force?
On what grounds, though? On grounds of a stereotype that a young black man is an abrasive, erratic, violent murderer? Or are we going to have this on the grounds of where he perceives a young black man as he would perceive a young white man? Now, I'm not going to...
it's an important point. The policeman goes to the window perceiving a threat based on maybe racial bias.
He also said that he smelt marijuana, and he said that that was very much influential in his decision to do what he did.
Why are they going to the windows at all? I mean, that's a good question, right? It seems every time they go to the window, they fear a gun will be pulled, a legal weapon or an illegal weapon, and they are on a hair trigger. And these shootings are happening more often and spreading like wildfire across the country because of social media.
Absolutely. I mean, and how wonderful, I think. I mean, it's a horrific video, but I'm so pleased that she had the presence of mind to do her Facebook Live as she did, and that we all can see this, because I think finally, now that it is out there, now that it did go viral, we're all very much aware of what happened. And perhaps, as you say, these very, very core issues can be addressed.
I mean, but I have to say, in fairness to the police, I've seen a lot of other videos that we haven't played here in this program, and that is where these shootings, where policemen are shot, occur also within a fraction of a second. And they go to the window deeply nervous, they're scared, and because of the amount of guns on the street in the U.S.
Yes, but there's been police murders since John Dillinger. So I don't think that is in the broader picture, I don't think that is a valid point. The police are supposed to face violence. Unfortunately, we don't live in a utopian world, so they should be trained and ready for this.
It's easy for you to say not being at the window.
Granted, but if I was a police officer and I wasn't prepared mentally to deal with those tough situations, you shouldn't be in the force.
I agree with you, and maybe there needs to be some better standard across the U.S. for the selection and training of policemen. Georgina,
but surely
final point on this.
It comes down to gun control, and until gun control is addressed, until people in America stop having so many weapons, the National Rifle Association did make a comment on this. They said it was very concerning, but they haven't obviously moved their position.
Georgina and David, thank you so much for going over a very busy week with us. Thank you both.
Thank you.
We end with our Inside Bite, a little something that we feel that you should know. Now, in a world full of problems and strife, people across the globe have been turning to the ancient practice of yoga to clear their minds of their day-to-day stress. From beginners to experts of the practice, International Yoga Day saw tens of thousands around the globe bending, stretching, returning to calm, rhythmic breathing. Even soldiers from India's army took time out to get in on the action. And it wasn't just on dry land either. In Boston, in the United States, these paddleboard students took to the Fort Point Channel to show off their moves. And take a look at this. Even New York's busiest tourist center, Times Square, took time out to stand still, all in the name of peace. We hope that you have a peaceful weekend. That's all for now. I'm Dana Lewis, and that was Insight.